Good afternoon. I'm here this afternoon, Sandra Cherfrere, President, Democratic Women's Club of Greater Broward. I'm here this afternoon. I have the pleasure of interviewing Josh Rydell. He's a candidate for Coconut Creek Commission Group E, right? Is that correct, Josh?
That is correct. I'm a
Yes,
candidate
yes.
for re-election.
Right, up for re-election for Coconut Creek Commission Group E. We were supposed to talk on Monday, but a lot going on, didn't get a chance to. He was gracious enough to reschedule. So we're going to talk a little bit today about what his plans are for the city of Coconut Creek. Why should he, what he's done already, because he's already an elected official. And, and I know he's been canvassing because I went and helped out a little bit on Saturday, and I got a chance to see like how beautiful and cool Coconut Creek is, right? I was there, and I think I only went on like maybe 4 or 5 blocks, and I saw 3 different parks, right? Which is like absolutely amazing. I mean, I live in Miramar. We have a park that they kind of made up for us, but you guys have a lot of natural just things that are happening there. So it was a great city. It was also cool just to see the diversity that was happening in that city. One of the blocks I went on, there was a Haitian lady across the street, another person with a Trump flag. Then there was this cool couple at the end of the block that was like gardening and everything like that. So it was a really great mixed bag from what I saw just after just a couple hours of canvassing. So I mean, it seemed to be a great city to live in at least. And so we're going to talk with Josh, and he's going to tell us why he's running for re-election and what it is that he wants to continue to do for the residents of Coconut Creek.
Listen, first of all, thank you for having me, and any opportunity to just engage with engaged residents and engaged citizens and engaged people that are active. I feel very fortunate. So thank you for allowing us to reset this. Thanks for doing it this afternoon. Listen, I ran for office the first time in 2015, really to better my community and better my family. At the time, we had moved to Coconut Creek, and I can tell you just a brief funny story. I was coming to Coconut Creek when I was in middle school because my grandparents originally retired down here and bought a place in Coconut Creek. Mm-hmm. So before what we call the north end of the city, which is everything north of Sample Road, for those that are familiar with it, that didn't exist. It was strawberry fields. So I was coming here as a kid. So it's interesting. I ended up down here for law school. I'm originally from Buffalo, New York. And then when I met my wife, her family has longstanding ties to the city of Coconut Creek. When we decided to settle down and have a family, our first house was, in Coconut Creek. Mm-hmm. And I remember one of the first moments, we were painting the house because we just bought our first home. We had just got married. We're painting the house. And that's actually when we found out we were pregnant with our first daughter. Fast forward life, I now have 2 beautiful little girls. So what engaged me is I'm always an engaged resident. I've always been involved in just being engaged, whether it was student government in high school, whether it was, various political organizations in college and in law school, and even after. I was always been very involved in judicial elections because I don't think people realize how much judges define society. So when we were in the city, I was active in the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. I've been placed as an active resident on some of these boards. An opportunity came up to run for office. And at the time it was, there was a contested race. We ran, we knocked on doors, we got out there, and we learned what people in Coconut Creek want. They want controlled development. They want to flourish in their parks and recreation programming. They want to, they want that dump to shut down. They want to enjoy their life in kind of this hidden gem in Northwest Broward. And, getting engaged in local politics allows you to really help the people. It's the people with the potholes on the side of the road, or, making sure a stop sign isn't covered by a tree, or making sure your response times and police and fire comes out when they need to come out. So it really is, it all starts local. You know that, I know that, we talk about that every day just in politics. And it's been an honor to represent the residents of Coconut Creek for the past couple of years.
Right. And I definitely agree with that. Most people, they only want to show out or come up and show up when it's time for the presidential election. And I'm not saying that presidential elections aren't important, but the local officials, they're the ones that's making decisions about your day-to-day life. Like you said, that pothole, that tree that's covering the stop sign, overgrown, whatever, not being able to have access to the park, noise ordinances. Those are all things that happen from local officials. So, you guys are referred to as down ballot candidates. And I think the down ballot candidates are very important. And your election is on March 9th, 2021. And that's another thing that's also weird too, is because it's not in the middle of a traditional election cycle. So sometimes a lot of folks don't know that there's actually an election that's not happening in November of either, of each even year. So how is it that you're going about to let the people know that there is an election that's taking place on March the 9th?
Listen, years ago, and I learned this, I'm a big history guy. I learned kind of the history of South Florida and the history of Broward County. 25 years ago, there was, I think, 22 municipalities. There's obviously been more municipal governments that have since formed.
Yeah.
And there became
Something
this
like 30
thing
or
of this
something.
March municipal cycle election. So, but there's been a slow trend. A lot of the municipal elections have been becoming on November for better turnout. I'm a big supporter of shifting our elections to the November election to benefit turnout and to reduce any cost to the city. But really, you got to get out the vote. You got to go knock on doors. You got to make the phone calls. You got to reach out to residents. You got to engage people in different capacities, whether it's sports programs, whether it's retirement communities. And I will tell you this: what this pandemic has done has actually made people really focus on local government. And you have a lot of people getting absentee ballots, and a lot of people have become more aware. Like, listen, I used to back when things were normal, I would go and I mentor and coach some of the debate and mock trial programs in my city schools. And the one thing I always blew my mind is you could walk into a group of kids and you say, "Who's the president of the United States?" Everyone always knows that. But when you tick down that list to your state senator, your U.S. senator, your state rep, your U.S. rep, to your county commissioner, to your local elected officials, the trajectory just goes down, 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 and down by people even understanding. And I've tried to educate people on that, and I've tried to educate our youth on that, because I believe civic engagement is important. And we've been blessed with really engaged public schools in our city that welcome the city commission coming in and welcome those engagements and those involvements and those city programs to help bolster, our schools.
Right. And it's not only just the kids, because I'm telling you, I know some adults that have some very fancy degrees, and you'll ask them who's the mayor of their city and who's their county commission and everything like that, and they can't name them. Like, they literally cannot name them. And I mean, I live in the city of Miramar. We also have an election on March the 9th.
Yes, you do.
The commission seats are up, and we know our commissioners because their pictures are all over the place. My son played in the police athletic league, with the city, and so their pictures are on the wall, and they do all these different events. So I'm fortunate to live in one of those cities that have a lot of engagement, but not just the kids. I mean, it's the adults too who don't know who it is that's making decisions about their day-to-day life. So what is it that you want to, you said one thing, I'm going to step back a little bit before I ask that question. I've spoken to several different candidates, and one of the things that seems to be happening is that there's so much development, right? Like, they still want to build things in, they're still building. I'm like, who's buying this stuff? Who has money? Like, where are these people coming from that's gonna go buy, this all of this new development? Is that one of the issues that's happening in Coconut Creek? Because I know it's happening in Miramar, and every time I see a new development come up, I'm like, who's gonna move in there? I don't understand. But
listen, that's why I got involved 5 years ago. I bought in a neighborhood surrounded by parks and greenways and things like that, and you start to see this development. So I'm a huge believer in controlled, smart development. It's something that I've been able to actually really be successful in governing a good narrative in Coconut Creek. Listen, an interesting statistic is Coconut Creek has the largest parcel of undeveloped land right now in the county. So in a lot of places like Miramar and Parkland, some of that green space has already been developed. Pembroke Pines has a little bit left, but there's an enormous tract of land in Coconut Creek that the development is going to be significant for the future impact of the city. And that is something I've been a watchdog over in any of these development parcels and any of these projects that even potentially come to the city. So is overdevelopment here? Yeah, but we need to be smart in our development. And then it shifts from new development to redevelopment to maximizing our space and being creative in some of that. Because at the end of the day, we are finite in land in South Florida. So if you're not going to be able to go out, you're going to end up going up. And we see that in our coastal communities that just keep getting higher and higher and higher with high rises. Now, I don't think that's on our immediate agenda anywhere in our city. That's not happening here, but we have to plan for the future. So development is real, it's here, and it has to be done right, because developers have, people that own land have rights, but if you do it right in a creative and smart fashion, you are able to engage in very smart, creative, and controlled development.
So what would that development look like in Coconut Creek? Because it really, like I said, when I was just there for the few hours I was there, I mean, it just seems so family oriented, right? They had, they had the basketball hoop outside the house, for like the kids, and then you could tell like the grandparents probably lived a couple streets down. How would that development look like? Because again, I live in city of Miramar, where there's all type of stuff happening, and it's always like a Publix with a Ross with a Five Below, a Dollar Tree, just all of these big commercial spaces, and it doesn't give you that homey city, quaint neighborhood type feeling. So what would development look like in Coconut Creek that you may be okay with, or is that just not, there's just really no place for that there?
I think for the purpose of what you're talking about, like commercial build out and things like that, the city's maxed out. I mean, those large commercial hubs, they're developed. Right where in the area I live, there's more of a distressed shopping center. So one of my objectives through the years has been trying to find tenants and doing things that we can incentivize new tenants with creative concepts that are not traditional brick and mortar businesses. And then your big bays where you would have, a Publix or something like that, you find a different, unique feel for it. So that, there was a former place up here that used to be a hardware store. A gym came in and redeveloped and is now one of the most successful gyms in the city. Obviously, taking into consideration the pandemic and the the terrible nature of what that's done to gyms and restaurants and things of that nature, but finding the creative partnership that suits a need. So I don't necessarily see this wide sprawling development, because for the most part, Coconut Creek is built out. It's just about being creative in what we're adding those right pieces of the puzzle to make it an even more family friendly city.
Okay, so one of the things you said is that you used to go there all the time because your grandparents lived there, right? And then now you and your wife decided to move into Coconut Creek. So what's happening? What's the population of Coconut Creek like? Is it still like for the retirement, for folks to come and retire? I mean, I lived in Sarasota for a while, right? Sarasota is beautiful, but I think the average age in that place is like 70, you know what I mean? Or like 65. So is that what's happening in Coconut Creek? Are people still going there to retire, or are they going to the beach, or are they going to the West Coast?
So that trend, there's been a downward trend in Coconut Creek. Your first neighborhood in Coconut Creek, which we refer to as South Creek, those homes have been around since the 50s and the 60s. That is an trend. The neighborhood that you gracefully came and helped me. That's one of our oldest gem neighborhoods with huge history behind it and family history to pioneers in Northwest Broward. Then as you move slowly up north through the city from the south end to the north end, you have sprawling retirement, adult living communities, retirement communities, active living communities, where traditionally there's one age restricted community where my grandparents lived at the time. Wasn't, it's still not, but there's just a large population that was older. But as the city developed more north and more north and north in these beautiful single family home communities and new schools popped up, the median age started coming down. Okay. So the median age is actually significantly lower than a lot of our surrounding cities. So it has come down. It is there is a thriving family population, young family population, and you see that in our parks and rec programs. You see it when my daughter plays softball. You see it when I'm out on a soccer field. You see these amazing blossoming families, diverse families that are coming to the city. So to answer your question, we've tricked down a little bit from this retirement community that probably stigmatized the city for years and years to a vibrant, very diverse age-wise community.
Okay, so the other thing is, like, what about working where you live, right? So is there like enough employment in Coconut Creek that the people who live there work there too, or people just like they go to work someplace else and they drive home to sleep and be relaxed and then do sports on Saturdays with their children?
Well, I think it professionally depends on what you do. Listen, I'm an attorney professionally. I commute, in non-COVID times. I've learned about the Zoom platform a significant amount, but in non-COVID times, I'm in a courtroom a lot. So, I could be in the courthouse, whether in the Broward courthouse, the federal courthouse, the Dade courthouse. So, but there's different people depending professionally on what you do. Now, I will say this: Coconut Creek is a unique technology park where we have manufacturing jobs, we have trade jobs, we have high technology jobs. There's aerospace jobs. There's nationally recognized emergency management jobs that are in the city. The city's biggest employers is probably Publix and the Broward County School Board. So that's traditionally throughout all Broward County. Those are very big employers. Not in the city limits, but right next to our city on tribal lands is the Seminole Coconut Creek Casino, which is a huge employer for our local base and things like that. So there are a lot of local jobs, especially because Coconut Creek also sits on a transportation hub. Mm-hmm. We sit with exits on the turnpike. We also sit within a 7-minute drive of 95. And what cuts through the north end of the city is the Sawgrass Expressway, that you have this access to get to some major cities, whether Miami, whether Fort Lauderdale, whether Palm Beach, or even the West Coast. It really is unique in this transportation hub that we have. So there's a lot of jobs here, but again, career-wise, the one thing that Coconut Creek doesn't have, we don't have a major hospital. We have a couple emergency room centers and, quick care, like we call them, but there's no, but right across the road on 441, because that's one of our borders,
Springs,
we have
Tamarack.
hospitals in Margate and Coral Springs.
Right. Okay. So the other thing, so you've had a chance to go and talk to the residents. Your vision, what it is that you want to do for the city of Coconut Creek, is it aligning up with the residents when you're out there canvassing? What is it that they would like to see happen in Coconut Creek or not happen in Coconut Creek?
Listen, people want to be engaged and they want to understand. There's two big issues in Coconut Creek. We got a big landfill next to us. People don't want that anymore. They want that being limited. They want it being shut down. All right. And I have been blessed to being part of a commission that shut that dump down. Our garbage doesn't go to that dump. We have a landmark deal in place that they're limited significantly in what they put in that dump. People don't want their everyday life. The Turnpike wants to expand in my city. It's going to go through people's backyards. We're going to fight that. That's going to affect property values and people's right to enjoy their home. People don't want taxes going through the roof. And they want, when you call the police department or you call the fire department, they want their response times good. They want to be in a city where they feel safe, secure, and can thrive. And those have been my priorities since I've been on the commission. And I think I want to, and that's the work we're going to continue, because there's big decisions coming up. I could sit here all day and talk about recycling and 911 and public safety, because those are very big issues that are going to affect our city. And we need the right leadership so that it benefits our city how it needs to.
So Coconut Creek have their own police department, or are they contracted with BSO?
We have our own municipal police department.
Okay, then. All right. And fire and everything, you take care of all of that on your own?
Fire services right now is going through a transition. So for the past about 20 years, we've had an agreement with the city of Margate for a joint fire department. That agreement is coming to an end, and we're going to be having our own fire department, but joining Coral Springs' dispatch system. So something very, there's a big issue in public safety in this county, and I lay it out so simply to people like this. If you're in Miramar and you call 911 right now, I don't want to call 911 and test the theory. If you call 911, the first thing they're going to say to you is 911, where are you located?
Right.
In Coral Springs, for example, they have their own dispatch station. They didn't join the county's regional system. If you're in Coral Springs and you call 911, it's what you traditionally think it should be. And what, even on TV, the show 911, they make you seem that happens. It's 911, what's your emergency?
Right.
And there is crucial seconds that matter. And there has been an uproar of people in my city saying, hey, this is subpar service because you got to understand, the city of Coconut Creek had its own dispatch center where dispatchers and call takers know the city backward and forward. We gave that up prior to me getting on the commission. That stopped. And like most cities, they joined this regional system with the concept of cost savings and better service, but it hasn't really, gone that way. So now we have to really reinvent of how we can be forward thinking, be cost effective, and provide a better level of service. So I could teach a webinar on fire services and emergency services, because I have focused so much of my attention on it.
No, so I'm extremely familiar. My brother was in the communication departments at BSO, so he knows. So I know way more than I should know about when you call 911, what happens. And there are even like some areas, depending on where you are, like across the street is another city. So you need to be real clear in how you give the direction on what side of the street you're on, because you might call for Hollywood and it's not Hollywood, it's like Pembroke Pine or or West Park or something like that. So I do understand that, and I'm glad that you guys are those are all important things, and I'm glad that that's something that you're worried about.
Yeah, and it's not, and honestly, Sandra, it's not. I mean, we have the best people that work as first responders down the level, but sometimes it's the bureaucracy that makes it not work.
Right. And it's not them, and it's the people who are calling, like the one with the emergency. You don't know that like it's all these different departments. That's so you're in a stressful situation because you're calling 911 anyway, and you just say, listen, I'm on the exit or like Sheridan, you know what I mean? And that's all you know. And depending on how you describe that will dictate who's gonna come out and help you. And I'm sure no one in law enforcement is gonna let someone die or be in a dangerous situation just because that's not their jurisdiction. But all of those things matter. And like you said about the response time, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 seconds can definitely make a difference in how that situation is resolved.
Listen, I had a personal experience. Me and my wife woke up. We heard a major car wreck right outside of our window. We heard the accident, and probably 11:35 at night. And I called 911, and it took them about 72 seconds before they answered the phone. that's crazy. If I'm calling 911, somebody should answer the phone. We shouldn't, and
Yeah.
just ring and ring and ring, and that's problematic. Just as what is a government to provide service to residents, emergency service. So just a personal example of my own experience.
Yes, exactly. So COVID has like caused stress for a whole bunch of people. A lot of cities are having issues with it. I hope Coconut Creek is one of those cities that was really good about their money, and then they have reserves, and they're not going to run into these problems, because a lot of us spent probably the last like 8 or 9 months of 2020 and didn't buy a thing. So, there weren't any sales taxes, you know what I mean? We were trying to like negotiate with our mortgage companies and see like, and they let us, push that on the back end. So there's a whole issue of taxes and revenue and all those different things, right? So how have you been, since you're already on the commission, how have you been able to manage that? And how do you see managing, the effects of COVID moving forward from the, the tax revenue, tax-based side of it?
The good news is we handled the deficiencies in finances that obviously COVID brought on the city of Coconut Creek marvelously, that there won't be tax increases to the residents of Coconut Creek. The taxes aren't going up. So right. That's a really important thing on a significant budget shortfall. And how you handle it is really a threefold process. You're able to move capital improvement projects, years forward and down the road, so long as we've actually kept up with our infrastructure. We've been a very proactive city with all of our infrastructure and our capital improvement needs. So we have the ability to juggle some of those projects that we can put down the road a little bit so we can sustain better. The second issue is we have CARES money through the county, and we also have FEMA money, which is matching grant money that we were able to obtain as well, being creative in our accounting. And the most important thing is city departments were able to shave their own budget expenses down significantly to save about $1 million in and of itself. So on the COVID response, the city has been marvelous, and you plan for these things, and we are a very financially prudent yet financially secure city. Now, the real prong of the COVID pandemic is bringing the community out of it. It's bringing the people that can't pay their rent out of it. It's bringing the small businesses that need help. And you got to give them that help, not just in PR, not just in media from the city, but we spearheaded grant funding, free money from the city of Coconut Creek to go to small businesses and go to nonprofits, saying, here's $2,500, fill out an application, let us help you. The sign requirements that we usually don't allow certain types of signs. Put any sign you want out. The city's not going to care about it. We're not going to fine you on it. We want you to build your business. How can we help you? And that has been my focus since the pandemic. I remember riding around on my bike in the first couple of weeks of the pandemic to ghost streets. But I remember taking notes and posting on Facebook, hey, this business is open, get takeout. Or, hey, we could do something. But that's what people need from their government to really activate.
Right. And so so you talked about like helping people with their rent and that type of thing. So what's the percentage, if of like homeowners to renters in the city? Because some cities, part of the reason why they have money problems is because it's a city full of renters, right? Like most of the people are renters, they just don't have a lot of homeowners, they're not getting that much in taxes. And I mean, it really just is what it is, and you just have to make it work. So is that one of is there more homeownership happening in Coconut Creek, or you have
there is significantly more homeownership. There are a number of apartment buildings that had been years ago. I don't even think an apartment building came before me on the commission that I even voted on. There is some established apartment buildings that are very good and secure. I've reached out to some of them over the pandemic. Some of the property managers and some of the management companies of some of our local apartment buildings, really just to check of what can we do? Is there anything you need in some of those avenues? And their actual weren't having as significant problems. I think it's twofold. You have people that are renters that have problems, and you have homeowners that have problems in terms of that the COVID issues. But the city, to answer your question, is significant more in regarding homeownership, single family homeownership, condominium ownership.
Okay. And so what about because of COVID, and I'm glad to hear that you guys were good with the money. Did you guys have to take did you lose any staff, or was the city able to keep everybody employed and everything like that?
No, we were able to keep everyone employed. We actually redeployed staff. So, for example, over the months and months of COVID, where the city governments are shut down, society is shut down, our parks and rec staff became kind of, I don't like to qualify it as this, but they became sanitization staff. They became janitorial staff. They were engaged in certain capacities in city government. So we were able to shift people's job description to be in the different role of doing cleaning and doing, precautions and safety measures and things like that. So the answer is no one, and I'm proud to say that no one was downsized in this terrible pandemic.
Okay. And so what about going back, moving forward? Like we're going to still have to maintain social distancing. It's good to hear that the president has secured enough vaccines for like, I think every American, he said, it's going to be a thing to convince everyone to get the vaccine, right? Some people are, yes, they're ready, can't wait their turn. And others are like, yeah, let me know, like, holla at me in a year. Let me see what happened, right? I'm not ready yet, right? But even with being vaccine, I don't know if we can ever go back into a space 100%, right? Does the city have any plan of, having, doing what, 50% in one day? What is the plan moving forward since everybody can't go back into the building altogether again?
Well, the answer is the majority of people, unless there's some sort of medical issue that prevents them from coming to work, the city's back fully functional. Just with protocols in place, with doors being shut, with glass barriers. The city commission is meeting live. I just sit in a little plexiglass cubicle while I'm doing it. So the city, on a city level for government services, has been back. Our programs are back. Our recreation programs are back, and we are back up and moving forward in the best way we can, in the safest way we can. On a different front, I attend some of the stakeholder meetings in regarding the courthouse. So just engaging in those discussions of, hey, how are we going to open other government services? How are we going to open courts? How are we going to open, different aspects of that? Opening the port. How are we going to open some of our security protocols and things of that moving forward? So, but part of why I love not only just representing the city, but being kind of a larger voice is to have a seat at those tables talking about, hey, some of these issues are regional issues, and we need to address those with larger people. And that really comes from building consensus and understanding more regional issues. But that you are right. It is going to be an interesting trend coming up. But I will tell you this: we've had a very big. We had a pod was a number of shots to a lot of residents in Coconut Creek. We're trying to get as many people we can. I have the feeling, and the calls I'm getting are people just wanting a shot. It's, hey, Josh, could you help us get the shot? And I can. Now, I'm not the governor. I don't make the rules, but I 100% I can connect you. You can't use the internet. Let me get on the website for you and try to make you an appointment at Tradewinds Park, where we have a big vaccination site. So I have been doing that for people, and that's part of what I love doing in this job, especially when you're able to help somebody or you make the connection that they can get the shot. Mm-hmm. Some of these people, they haven't left their houses in almost a year.
Yeah.
And it's heartwarming. Listen, my parents haven't seen my kids live. They have not seen, now they've seen them a lot on Zoom and FaceTime, right. But they haven't hugged my kids.
Right.
They haven't hugged their two little girls. My father suffers from Parkinson's. It's the health considerations are real. So it's heartwarming to know, and the appreciation, even though I'm not the person giving them the shot in their arm, is right. If I could help them coordinate something and facilitate something so they could start getting their life back, because there's a whole, I think there's going to be an effect on our kids, our mental health, and the city. And I've welcomed the opportunity to try to be proactive in those things, to say, hey, how can we be better? How can we be better to our residents, not just in resident services, but providing mental health, awareness and programming and connections. So
yeah, so good. So Coconut Creek has been able to go back to work and everything like that, and you guys are doing a good job job of it, and I can see that. So how can we get the teachers to go back in class and the kids back in school?
What are your shot?
What are your thoughts on that?
Listen, my wife's a teacher. We get them the shot. I mean, the reality is I have been actively lobbying, and this may not be a popular decision, but the governor should have first prioritized teachers. I mean, what's going on with the school board is not something I agree with. I've been extraordinarily vocal in saying that we need to get teacher shots. I fully believe that. And what also was a little bit flawed is, they pulled police officers off the first responder list too. So the governor modified his orders so that only paramedics, firefighters are on that first responder list, and law enforcement wasn't either. So, and the sad thing is, when you have an emergency situation, sometimes both police and fire respond. So, I mean, there's a lot, but I'm not the governor. I have a lot of, creative suggestions I'd love to give them. But for now, I'll have to keep it for the residents of Coconut Creek.
Like, hopefully it'll be somebody else in 22, because a lot of this could have just been managed a lot differently. I mean, the number of deaths it's just so sad. And I think with what's happening now, and convincing folks to wear masks and social distance, and the buy-in of like how important it is and how much of a difference just wearing a mask will make. Hopefully, since that messaging is changing, we can address this COVID situation. And then with the vaccines that are coming out, and more and more folks taking it and realizing that this is a serious thing, it'll be different. So why should the folks reelect you, Josh?
Listen, I am proud to stand on my record. I am proud to stand on my constituent services. I I have my cell phone number on a city business card. I hand it to anybody that needs it. If you want to call me, it rings. I have been there for the residents of the city, and I have been honored. It's an honor of a lifetime to be their voice, and not just for the young families, but for the young at heart, and for everybody in this city that just wants to and has the right to have a nice quality of life, to have themselves and their property protected, and to enjoy the city that they live in. And I have been a fighter on the front of that dump issue I talked about. I've been a fighter for the Turnpike expansion. I've been a fighter for our kids and our programming, and at those think tank discussions of, hey, how can we provide more to our residents? And I love it. And I'm an open book about everything we do, and this city comes first. And all of my time is dedicated to doing every little thing I can to make people enjoy it more and to be there for the residents of Coconut Creek. So I would love to earn anyone watching this your support on March 9th, and feel free. You can reach out to me. I'll put I'll Sandra put my information out there, but I'm easy to find, and I relish the support. And candidly, thank you for allowing me to be here and have a platform to speak.
So that was the last thing I was going to tell the folks, how to get in touch with you if they want to donate their time and donate some money to your campaign, because the election, what is like less than a month away right now, with 22 days, something like that. So yeah, how can they get in touch?
I'll make it easy. So my cell phone, if you actually are watching this and you call, just don't call at like 3 a.m, because I may answer and then we don't know what happens. 856-8015, and that's 954 856-8015. And our campaign website is ourcoconutcreek.com, OUR, coconutcreek.com. And that has some of our platforms. It has our issues. It has ways to volunteer and get engaged. And listen, we are out knocking on doors. We're very careful with that. We do literature drops. You helped us with one. I'm very appreciative of that. We're out all weekends on Saturdays and Sundays doing these things. And then we have a lot of fun, creative campaigning we're doing during the week as well. But I can't let all my secrets out of the bag. So thank you. And I relish the opportunity to hear from anybody and engage with anyone.
Okay. So are you on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all those things?
Yeah. So you can look up, we have a Josh Rydell for Coconut Creek City Commission E. We're at Joshua Rydell on Twitter, and we do not have an Instagram account.
Okay. All right. Then. So Facebook, he gave you his phone number, was 954-856-8015. I'm at Josh Rydell on Twitter, and then Joshua Rydell Group E on Facebook.
Yep. My name Rydell, depending on your age demographic, Bobby Rydell, people know Bobby Rydell. He was a singer years ago. Or Rydell High from Greece, also a good one, okay. But no relation to the high school in Greece.
All right. And just say your website one more time. And thank you so much. Thank you so much.
www.ourcoconutcreek.com. And thank you. Listen, engagement in politics is selfless. Engagement in politics matters, but we need to engage citizens and engage residents in all of our cities. And you're coming to Coconut Creek to help me, and I relish the opportunity to come to Miramar and help you.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good one, everybody. Josh Rydell, Coconut Creek Group E.